Hey, what's going on, comic book fans? It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and I just got into the garage right outside of the Charlotte Convention Center getting ready to do day one of Heroes Con. I'm really excited. I want to do this quick opening right now because I want to hit the ground, get in there quick so I can get in that VIP line, try to be close to the front of the line because I've got an idea of who I want to go see first. I think I'm going to do Walt Simonson, and I want to get in there quick and get those books done and move on to the next artist. So sit back, enjoy some of the footage from the con. This is going to be day one. I'll probably break it down by artist. We'll see how it goes, but I just want to do this quick introduction and get going. So I will see you in a little bit, guys. All right, guys, I just finished up here day one at Heroes Con, and I had a great time meeting a lot of artists, getting a lot of books signed. I actually spent a little bit of time going through looking at some comic books as well. So sit back, let me get back to the hotel, and then we'll sit down and we'll do a little show and tell.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
All right, guys, I made it back to the hotel, and I was able to pull out all the books that I got signed. But I was thinking about it. If I show you every book I got signed today, we're going to have an even longer episode than I really want to have today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the artists that I've got. I'll spotlight one of their books. And then in the upcoming episodes, I may break it down by artists, or I may put a group of artists, do 2 or 3 in one episode. So we'll break down the episodes and I can show you everything that I got from that particular artist. So let's start with what my plan of attack was when I got there today. I couldn't believe how big that line was for the VIP. I got there 2 hours before the VIPs were going to get in. It was going to be a 10 o'clock entrance for the VIPs. And I got there just a few minutes after 8 o'clock, and I was at least 100 people back in line. By the time they opened the doors for us, there must have been, I was probably in the first third, I would say that, but I couldn't believe how many VIP tickets they sold and how many people showed up early. And I was contemplating, what do I do? I know that my number one on this day one was going to be Walt Simonson, because I know how bad his lines can be because he does sketches. It slows everything down. Well, luckily, the 3 people that I brought books in for were all right next to each other. So I had an option. There was Chris Claremont, there was John Romita Jr., and there was Walt Simonson and Louise Simonson too. And I know I wanted Walt, but man, I didn't know which line I was going to end up going to. So I only brought a backpack with the books in it. And that way I could be mobile, I could be fast. And as I said, all 3 of them are pretty much next to one another. So I sped down there, and Chris Claremont was actually already at the booth, and he started signing immediately. I mean, that guy likes to make money. I think his son probably helps him with that. He was there. Ben was there. Well, that line had already taken off, and there was probably 15 to 20 people already in line at that point. There was nobody in the John Romita Jr. line, but there was also no signings for John Romita Jr. So I don't think anybody really were paying attention to what table he was going to be at. And then after that was the Walt Simonson, and it was the shortest of the 3, although like technically John Romita Jr. wasn't there, no signage or anything, so nobody got in that line. So I got in the Walt Simonson line. I was number 7, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty good considering how bad I've seen his lines in the past. Well, I'm having kind of regrets not jumping over to get Chris Claremont, because I know Walt and Louise have a tendency not to show up on time. And once they get there, they want to talk to other creators, people they know, and it just takes forever. Plus the sketches. So while we were waiting for Walt and Louise to sign, we're sitting there watching Chris Claremont already starting to sign. Didn't take too long, though, before John Romita Jr. showed up, and that line just never got that long. And at one point, I kind of contemplated asking some of the guys in line with me, hey, can you hold my place? I'm going to run over there and get some Romita books signed, and I'll come back. And I almost pulled that trigger, and in the end, I'm glad I didn't, because it wasn't more than 10 minutes later, Walt and Louise showed up. So it all worked out with that to begin with, to start with Walt and Louise. So I ended up getting a bunch of books signed by Walt and a few from Louise. What I'll do is I'm going to show you a few of the books that I got signed, and in the longer format episode per artist, I'll show you all the books that Walt signed and Louise signed. How could I not go to a Walt Simonson signing without another Thor 337? Of course, I've got to get that signed. It's interesting. I gave him the whole cover to work with, and traditionally, he does the signature right down here. But I guess this is the new place he wants his signature, is up here now. Go figure. It didn't really matter. It looks fine. The black Sharpie did fine on that. And I'm going to show you another Walt Simonson, although, like I said, I'm not going to show you everything. But I'm doing this one because I did go by Art Adams' table later in the day. When I got there, he was right next to Jeff Loeb. And I was waiting for people to get Jeff Loeb. In fact, I was in line for Jeff Loeb. There was only one or two people in the Art Adams line. And as I'm standing in line, everybody finished with Art Adams. And I asked the guy standing behind me, he said, hey, can you hold my place? In fact, you can go in front of me. I'm just going to jump over here and get Art to sign this, which Walt also signed. He wrote this. And there's Art Adams' signature right there. And again, I've got some more Art Adams books. We'll show that in another episode where I show you everything for Art Adams. Now, Louise I only had 3 books, and this is one. I had a really nice copy of this here. It may go in for grading at some point, but the first appearance of Doomsday, Superman, Man of Steel number, what is this, 18 or 19? It's 18. I never can remember. And at that point, what's the next thing to do? The only books I've got on me, really, at this point, are Walt's, John Romita Jr., and Chris. And Chris's line was out the door. Luckily, as I said, John Romita's line never got that long. So I got in his line figuring, okay, this is great. I'll knock out the rest of the books I have for him. Now, I had to make sure I've got 10 books for his meet and greet on Sunday night. So I had another 8 books. And I get up there. I spent the whole time in line going through the books. Which ones do I get signed? Which ones do I hold back? And ultimately, there was a lot of books in there from Klaus Janson that did the inking on a lot of those books. And I knew I was going to go by and see Klaus at some point during the show. And I said, well, let's do this. Let's pull all the books that Klaus signed. And turned out it was a lot of books. But one of them that he signed was this one right here. So I also got Klaus today, too. This is the new Doom Quest #1. This is the variant cover that just came out like last week or 2 weeks ago with this Romita Jr. cover. I thought Scott Hanna had done the ink of it. I asked John about it. He says, no, this was Klaus Janson. He actually told me ahead of that. And even then, I didn't believe him. So I went to Scott Hanna for something else. And I do have a Scott Hanna signature today, but I'm not going to show that one. I'll save that one for a little bit later. But I asked Scott about that too, and he said, no, they sent that to Klaus. He didn't do it. And it's funny because just about everything Romita does, Scott Hanna works on. So, and it had been a while since Klaus and John Romita Jr. had worked together. So it was interesting to see that on here. But I should have had him sign it. In fact, when I see him on Sunday night at the meet and greet, I'm going to remind him that he said this was the very first one he signed on this book. And I may have him write that on here. He signed it already, but I'm going to remind him, and maybe he'll put the first one signed or something like that. That would be kind of cool. So I had books for John. He signed the rest of the books. I've got 10 held back for his signing Sunday night. So at this point, it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Obviously, it's been taking a long time to go through these 2 lines. And I said, well, what should I do? Do I wait and try to go through that line and it will be all afternoon trying to get through that Chris Claremont line? Or do I go back to the car, maybe have a little lunch, grab the rest of the books, get the cart? Now that I'm not in a rush, I can bring the cart in, bring the rest of the books in, and then I can go around getting whatever signatures I need to get. Well, I decided to do that. Chris Claremont's line was still pretty long. So I go back to the car, get the cart ready, and I get back in there. And it turned out Chris Claremont's line wasn't that long. So I get in that line, and I hadn't planned on doing Chris until maybe Sunday. But at this point, I'm like, wow, you can walk right up. There was no line other than what's up by the stanchions right there. It wasn't extended all the way half across all the aisles and everything. So I got in line, and I ended up getting several books signed. And there's definitely some books in there that I'm going to take to that John Romita signing. And again, I will do a Chris Claremont show, and I'll show you all the books. And I've got some interaction with him and some commentary he was making about some things. I have to go through the footage first and see what I've got. But I'll try to do an episode just with Chris. But I did get this signed right here. This is Marvel graphic novel. I think it's number 4. This is the New Mutants, the original first appearance. And I also got Bob McLeod right here, who did all the art for this. And Chris signed it up here. And this is a 4th print now. It's not a first print, but this is a super high grade copy that I almost dropped at CGC. Well, I decided to go ahead and get it signed, and I may still drop it at CGC at some point, have the signatures verified, but this was pretty cool. But it's not quite the right story. I got it out of order. When I came back in, I didn't go right to Chris Claremont. I did go by his line, but I actually went just a little bit further down, and there's the CGC booth. And I've had a ton of orders that I've been working on the last couple weeks that I wanted to get in. I wanted to drop them off at the show. Typically, I don't drop those off until I get to the very end of the show or maybe at the beginning of Sunday. But I had the books in the car, and it is so humid down here in Charlotte that I didn't want those books sitting out there in the car any longer than they already had. So I brought all of my books to CGC that I was going to drop off anyway. As soon as I came back in from lunch, I went right to CGC, and you saw some of the footage in the montage there. We're going to CGC, and I probably won't talk any more about that at this point, but I dropped all those books off, and then as I'm walking back by, that's when I discovered that the Chris Claremont line was super short. So I got in there, and that's when I actually got Bob, because he's sitting right across the aisle. I did him first, and then went over and got Chris on that graphic novel and the rest of the books. So stay tuned for that episode. I'll definitely show you some more of that. So at this point, what am I going to do? I've got artists all over the place. You probably couldn't get into a Scotty Young line. I did go up by Stephanie Phillips. It was a really long line. I tried Jolie Jones, but they had cut the line off. That was a little bit later. But I was trying to knock off some of the ones I really wanted, especially ones that I wanted to invest in. And I hate to be thinking about money all the time, but some of these are high-grade books that I want to get into the CGC, and I'm granting value by adding these signatures and putting them to work to get this. So it's not like I'm doing this and trying to profit just for the sake of it. I mean, it's part of the business that I run. It helps me pay for a lot of this hobby. So I put the work in, and I hope to benefit from it. So I was definitely targeting some of the ones that I want to possibly get graded. Not all of them, but possibly some of them. But so I'm going around the room, and I'm looking for certain people. And sometimes I'll go by an artist like, ooh, let's just get that. It's not necessarily something for CGC, but it's something I want to get. And I ended up walking by Joe Jusko and got this signed. It's I don't even remember which X-Men book this is. I don't really care. But these were illustrations he did for some of the trading cards. And he's telling me that a lot of these books right here, he actually did the artwork a lot smaller. And he did that so he could save time. If he'd done a big illustration, it would have taken a long time. And he did one that was a lot smaller and maybe about a third the size of this. And he said that what was interesting was this art actually reproduced pretty good once it was enlarged. That's not always the case with artwork. But Joe signed a bunch of books, and he signed that one. And he had a silver Sharpie that just, man, I wanted to take that with me. That was a great silver Sharpie. Threw some great ink right there. So that was some good stuff. And then I went by, there was Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends. And of course, they've collaborated for a long time. And I went by and I got several Spider-Man books and a couple of Thor books. Nothing huge, but these are in high grade. They're actually pretty decent. You do pretty decent with them if you can get them graded and get that 9.8. But one of them was this one right here. We've got Amazing Spider-Man 259. I think you've got Mary Jane Watson's origin. He's back in the real costume right here, the red and blue. And Tom signed it up here. And then Ron signed it right there. And this is a pretty good book. It's an homage to Tales of Suspense 39, the original Iron Man story. There's several books like this that are out there like that. I remember John Romita Jr. did one, I think issue 126 of Iron Man. He did one like that. But I got several books from these guys. Again, I'll show you more in an extended episode. Now, in the neighborhood was Jim Starlin, and I did bring several books for him. And this one right here, I got to show you. It's really cool. Of course, it's Infinity Gauntlet. Of course, the movie came from this. And he signed it right down there. But what's great about this book is, look right there. Yeah, you can see it right there. That's a George Perez autograph. I got this from M&M Comics. They found a bunch of these copies of issue number 1 that George had signed. And I picked up one of them from one of their warehouse sales recently. And I'll probably go ahead and get Joe Rubenstein on this. I think he did the inking. I'll have to double check. But that was pretty cool. So I got that signed, and I got a couple other books. Again, I'll show that in a longer format episode. I think what I'll do is I'll do day 1 episodes. I just don't know how many episodes it will actually be. There'll be like an extended day 1 episode. Now, I did go by the kind of the independent artist area, and right there was somebody that I've gotten before, and he actually came to my LCS here, I guess earlier this year, really, was Jim Rugg. And this is when Youngblood had just come out with issue number 1. Maybe that was late last year. I don't remember exactly. But Third Eye Comics did an exclusive where he did an homage to Absolute Batman number 1 right here. And look at that beautiful signature right there. Yeah, this was an exclusive from Third Eye Comics. I'm sorry you can't see the whole thing. Of course, it says Youngblood, but it looks like the Absolute Batman cover, of course. So next up was another independent artist, Jeremy Bastian. I think that's how you say it. I met him last year. He did a book called Curse of the Pirate Girl. I believe that's what it is. And the detail, the artwork, just amazing. And we talked about that and how long it took him to do that book. Well, he signed a couple books, and I appreciated that was last year where he signed a couple books for free, and I appreciate that. Well, earlier this year, New Comic Book Day comes around, and I wasn't looking for a variant cover for Something Stealing Your Children, but because I already ordered the book, I'm not getting into the variants these days. But when the variant right here was sitting next to the regular cover, as soon as I saw this, I didn't even have to look this up to tell you who this was. Although I did verify it. I believe in Reagan's principles, trust but verify. And I saw this and I said, oh, well, that's Jeremy Bastian, definitely. And I looked it up, and sure enough, it was. So we talked about that for a few minutes. He appreciated the fact that I could go to a place and look and see this artwork and know that it was him. It kind of, I think, made him feel good. So that was pretty cool. And then I went by Don Rose's table. I had several books for him, including his first with Gladstone here of Uncle Scrooge. And he signed it in a great gold marker. And let me see if I can get the shine. Look at that there. And he said he did it in gold because the original story in here is all these statues that are in the background. They're not blue. They're supposed to be gold. And he said that they made it this way so it would drop back. So you've got Scrooge and who is that? I want to say Flintheart. I cannot remember. That they would stand out. But that's why he does that in gold. And you get the light the right way, and it really looks good. But Don, it's always nice to sit down and talk with Don a little bit. He got a little weirded out because I've got the books in these window bags, and he doesn't believe in grading. And I don't necessarily have intentions to get any of these graded at this point, but it doesn't matter. Every book that I give to an artist, unless they specifically say they will not sign books in these, like say a Scotty Young or maybe a Jim Steranko, I put them in this because it protects the book. I have a tendency to move around a lot when I'm in line, and the next thing I know, I do something like that, and I put a big bend in the book, or a finger bend, or color breaking whatevers. I don't want that to happen, so this prevents that, and it makes it easier. What happens when the artist takes this and bumps the corner, or they move the page and put a crease in it? I mean, it prevents all of that. And he was a little weirded out, and I convinced him that I was not getting this graded. I might get this graded. I don't know yet. Well, we'll see. And then lastly, the only other artist I ended up picking up today, I kind of ran out of time, although I did spend some time, as you saw in the montage, going through looking at new comics, was Mike Baron. And I did have some of his early Capital Comics books. Last year, I got him to sign issue number 1 from Capital Comics. Not the original number 1, but the regular size comic size number 1. Steve Rude, I believe, had already signed it. I cannot remember, to be quite honest. So I had several other issues with me. Issues 2, 3, 4, and 5. I didn't have issue number 6. And I had one other book, and I have this book right here. And in the end, I ended up pulling back, and I'm going, I don't need to get everything signed. When everything's at $10, $10, I mean, that's another $40 or $50 I would have dropped, and I don't really need those books signed. It would have been nice, but I did want to get this signed, something I found down in Logan, West Virginia at a little LCS. Well, I guess not really an LCS. It's not local, but little comic book shop. Was this right here. It's the original number 1 from Nexus Comics. It's more like a trade paperback size. It's a magazine size. But look at that. We got that. We got Mike Baron right there. Yeah, some good stuff. I hope that Steve Rude will make another appearance at Baltimore Comic Con, because you need Steve Rude on here. Heck, I'd take Paul Glacy, who has come to the Baltimore Comic Con, but it's been years. Glacy did the cover here. I'd love to get him on that as well. But I've got to at least get Steve Rude on this. But guys, that is it. These are all the artists that I got stuff signed from today. This is a sampling of what I got signed. As you can see, I've got stuff laid out on the bed back there. There are some things that need to go to other artists. I messed up a little bit today as I was going up to get Art Adams. There's some books that I got him to sign that I completely forgot to get Chris Claremont to sign. And I'm kicking myself because, crap, I don't want to get back in that Chris Claremont line. If I had any thought, I might just give it to my facilitator at the show and let them go get it, because I don't want to get back in that line. It's not worth it for me to get 3 more books signed by Chris Claremont at this point. But that's part of the problem, is these books need to be signed by multiple creators to kind of complete it. I believe it's some classic X-Men books that, remember, of course, Art Adams did the covers to those, and it's reprinting the original Claremont run on X-Men. Well, got to get Claremont on there too. So at some way or somehow, I want to get those done. I hope during this con, we'll find out. But guys, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed my day 1 episode here, and we'll stay tuned for future episodes coming up from Heroes Con. I will probably do a format like this, another episode like this for day 2 and day 3, and then we'll come back and we'll do episodes for each of those days with the longer format with each of the artists. And we'll see how many episodes that breaks down to. I don't know yet. It could be a lot. It could be a few. It depends on the kind of footage that I've got, the quality of that footage. But that's it for today. But guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, definitely give me a like, slap the subscribe, and click on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the future episodes coming up each and every week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Definitely leave me a comment down in the comment section below. Let me know if you've come to Heroes Con. Let me know if you want to come to Heroes Con and wanted some more information. Let me know what you got signed. I don't know. Give me a comment. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, I'm out of here. I will see you for the next show. Until then, remember, every comic has a story.